Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Every week, I introduce you to a new photographer that shares their tips and stories to inspire you to try something new. If you haven't signed up yet, you can join our newsletter at lindanickell.com/happiness hour. Tonight's guest is Brad Smith. Brad is a Dallas-based photographer who's mastered landscapes, lunar, and aerial photography. By trade, Brad is an engineer, and that background shows up in every aspect of his photography. From the precision and planning he brings to each outing, to the way he studies conditions and researches the best vantage points long before he ever sets up his camera. Brad is perpetually chasing the kinds of photos that don't just happen every day. His work is all about anticipating rare and fleeting moments, whether that's a skyline bathed in peak sunrise colors, a storm rolling in with a perfect orientation for lightning strikes, or unique seasonal lighting phenomenon that transform the familiar into something extraordinary. In tonight's presentation, The Art of Standing in the Right Places, Brad will walk us through the tools, strategies, and thought processes that allow him to predict when and where these magical conditions will unfold. If you're on Instagram, look for him at Disaster Film. Welcome back to the Happiness Hour, Brad.
Thank you so much, Linda. What a great introduction. I think I'm going to take over the screen sharing, and I'm
Well,
going to hit.
hang on for
Oh,
half
sorry.
a second. Everybody rushes to put up their screen. Okay, what did I miss today? So you don't, this is your hobby, okay?
Yes.
This is, y'all, his hobby is like, I think he spends more time in his hobby than I do at my job. He's very, very into this. And I got to meet him on Saturday night, and we had dinner with a handful of other people. And it was just interesting for me to be kind of an observer as people are talking about, just what they do with their photography and all the gadgets and the number of computers they have. And we were getting set up to record tonight. And he said something about switching to another computer. And then he said, I'm going to switch to this other computer. I'm like, how many computers are in that room? And, he admitted there were 4. That's a lot. So, Brad, in my intro, what did I miss? Is there something you want to add before you get started?
No, I wouldn't change a thing. That's a fantastic
All
introduction.
right.
I'm glad you know me well enough to do it like that. I couldn't imagine it being done any better. I want to be the kind of photographer that people can't tell I'm an engineer in the background. But really, like I feel like I've gotten to the point where I'm multiple people at the same time, and it's just like I feel like it's not so much changing hats, it's just different parts of you come out when you're doing different things. But what I found of doing this and being two people at the same time is that being good at one makes you better at the other.
Right.
And so as you mentioned, like I am just doing this for a hobby. I'm picking up more and more actual work from this, and I don't have an ambition of turning this into money or turning this into a profit, turning this into a full-time job. But there's going to be a point where, well, there may be a point where I'm looking at opportunities where it would be hard to say no to that. But I do love engineering. I've been an engineer for 18 years up in Dallas. Got some real highlight projects that we built. If anybody drives around with me in the car and wants the trail of tears, I'll point out all the stuff I've done. Like people either roll their eyes or my parents like it. I don't know. Um,
I'm going to take you up on that next time. I want to see. I want to see the things that you've helped design and
it's
thought
funny,
through.
and there's a lot of stories behind that, but there's one building in particular where I was sitting in a design meeting with a bunch of structural engineers and a bunch of civils and a bunch of layout people, and they were kind of talking about, hey, where are we going to put this column? And like me, like this isn't my job at all. This isn't my authority, but it's like I was like, hey, can we put this over here? Can we make room for this? And they're like, why? And I was like, I'll tell you after it's built. And then when they're doing the layout, like it produced this view of the lobby that me as a photographer, I wouldn't have even thought about maintaining sight lines and having that to make a photo and a composition out of. But as soon as they had the layout done and we were sitting on the slab, it's a skeleton of the building going up. I took the structurals here and they're like, oh, I was looking at this. So they give me crap for that. But so you talk about that photography doing a little bit of good. Like that's very much not the case, but it's becoming more of a public outreach, and it's actually becoming more of a thing that I'm offering in part of my engineering practice. I was telling Linda before, we're designing a high hazard, well, we were the designers of a high hazard dam right now just north of Love Field in Dallas. It's under construction. It's an old dam from 1903, and we're slowly fixing some of the problems it's got and adding new capacity to it. And I've shot time lapse for so long, I twisted my boss's arm into making him give me a little bit of budget to mount a permanent camera out there that I move around with the job as the different construction process is taking on. So right now I've had a camera out there for I think 15 months in a row. It takes a photo every 15 seconds or every 10 seconds or whatever I set it to. And so we'll have like a video record of the entire construction of this dam, the earth side, the structural side, this giant, beautiful spillway. So really it's like I think both sides of myself are taking over, and I want to be one person rather than multiples, but it's just taken a lot longer to weave those stories together.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's going to be a kind of a cool um piece to have. I am in a high rise in downtown Austin, and I thought about doing it. There was a building that was going literally outside my window, and I thought I should just do that too. And I let it get away from me, but I do regret not having it because it would have been cool, and I would have made someone pay me some money for that.
Well, they are like so many construction companies right now are paying for vantage points to house webcams for their construction. Because I mean, I can't tell you the number of projects I worked on where you're sitting there in a conference room 10 miles away from the site. You're like, hey, let's pull up this camera. Let's look at, column B12 or whatever. And you'll sit there and discuss certain aspects that you're seeing. It's like, oh, look at the contractor. They're putting concrete around this area. Like you're tracking this stuff in real time. It's amazing how much technology and how much webcams have really become part of the construction and engineering and architecture industry.
So, all right, let's get on with the nerd talk, and let's do something.
Okay, yeah, I've spared these people to death enough. They came in for photography, and I'm feeding them soil engineering.
Nope, that's okay. I think
It
all really fascinating, really.
it's I would say that the tools it takes for me to be able to like my profession is soil engineering, and so we have like very small amounts of observation about the subsurface, and we're asked to paint the bigger picture of the whole ground conditions to design the risk around it for building design, foundation design, retaining walls, highways, slope stability, pavement, all that other stuff. So a lot of it is like you're doing this invisible imagination work of geolocating where these things are underground and how deep they are and how they're related. What was funny for me is when I first started figuring out photography, all I had to do is take that visualization tool in my brain and turn it upside down. And that's like you were talking about, like the alignment of buildings and like precise composition and being able to find sight lines and being able to find locations that other people haven't found. Like it's just that. Like I know where all the buildings are now. I know where all the references are. I know all these different dimensions. And especially if you're in the air, if you're shooting as a drone photographer, the tools of being able to like know what something's going to look like before you go 300 feet in the air and take the photo. Um, like the answer is already in my head, and then the photo just confirms that that's what I was expecting, or you get surprises. So really, it's the imagination tool from the engineering side that's informing a lot of the decisions I make that make my photography life a heck of a lot easier.
That's pretty cool. You
Are we
good?
ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay,
Yeah. I
enough
want to know
chatter on that.
I want to know where to stand when I get.
Well, okay, yeah, that's
And this is easy for me because Dallas is just up the road. So a lot of I'm hoping some of the locations he shows are going to be familiar to me, and it just it's easy. It's probably not as easy for Shirley, who's in Connecticut, but I think what the concepts that you're going to share will trigger some planning for other people to kind of get to where they need to get in the cities they're located in.
right. I mean, I've taken photos all over the place. Like I travel with cameras and I go do this for fun. Like that's my vacation. And like
Yep.
anytime I can get out of town, I do that. But I made the selection of the photos for this presentation of what I'm talking about, like home based, because I'm trying to get people thinking about where they live and the things they do every single day, because like it's the repeated process of doing this over and over again that really enriches your ability to do this in the future. And a lot of what I've found has just been like the repetition of year after year as time is going by. You really start refining things. You really like, just even though it's the same place over and over again, you think about it differently, and you're a product of all the other places you've gone. Well, the title of this, as Linda said, is The Art of Standing in the Right Places. This map is Dallas, and I just wanted a big convoluted map of what looks like thumbtacks and photo locations. That's not explicitly what that's showing, but that was the attitude. From Linda's introduction, again, I'm Brad Smith. I've lived in Dallas for 18 years now. I've got my first camera about 10 years ago, a little bit longer than that. Started figuring it out. I started taking it seriously, quote unquote, 7 years ago, and I've been taking it like really seriously over the last 5 years. Um, and like Linda said, like I'm not going to repeat the thing about her introduction, but really it's like you can take the same photo every single day and that's fine. But I want to go to the same places that other people can go and make something otherworldly out of it. That's really that's what it feels like for my mission, and that's what it feels like for the stuff I like to post and I like to share. It's always a little brag to say, I got something that I don't think anybody else has ever seen before, even though it's in the same spot as before. And really what I want to do is I want to start introducing the tools. Like that just doesn't come from nowhere. Like there's things you can do, there's things you can think about and things you can tap into to make sure that you're in the right spot at the same time. Um, so that's my resume, but if we're going to step like one step deeper, that like psychologically, like how I am as a photographer, um, I would say the strength of my images and my catalog come down to my ability to predict what's going to happen, to be there in the right position to make the best out of it, and then to do what a photographer does and have the technical execution of being able to make the photo happen. So really, I'm saying that because I'm pretty envious of the people who they're improvisation based photographers, where they just go and they have no idea what they're going to do and they come back with something wild after that. I think this is too much of the engineering side of me. That is not me at all. Like everything I've ever shot and posted that I've ever been happy with has been pre-visualized to a T, has been worked on and refined, um, and has been slightly obsessed over. I'll put it that way. A lot of this comes from exploration. Like a lot of my, if you're not out there taking a catalog, or if you're not out there taking a like a portfolio level image, a lot of the time I'm just walking around, looking around, trying to find stuff. And that works really well if you've got like a fitness counter and a 10,000 step quota for your day. Just parking somewhere and walking around and seeing the world in a way you hadn't before, or trying to look at things a little bit differently. Like that's what I do with the time when you're not in peak conditions. But what I found doing this, um, as long as I have, and with the repeated year after year attitude of taking this on, is that like photography, like there's cycles and seasons to all this stuff. I don't think about it so much like a calendar, but I think of it so much like a changing season. And the fourth bullet point, like I'm calling this like a silent metronome, and it's very, very slow. But I found myself like seasonally, you go back to similar places, but you'll find that like, okay, this shot is a summer shot. Okay, this shot is a winter shot. Okay, this works better here. That works better here. Like I've been doing that habitually to try to maximize photos, but really I'm realizing I wouldn't call it a science, but there's a philosophy behind why that happens. So really what I want to do is I want to try to digest what I've learned about how to figure this stuff out, and to try to communicate it in a way that makes other people hopefully unlock their mind too. And really the last point is like, okay, you made it to the end of one year and you're back to January and you're starting over again. Um, you may be doing the same thing. You may be retracing your steps. You may be hitting the hot spots. You may be hitting, if you've got postcard spots in your city or your town or wherever you live, that that's what looks good. You may go back and see it a little bit differently. And the site's not, well, sometimes the sites change. Stuff gets built, stuff gets demolished, whatever. But for the most part, the site isn't changing. It's you that's changing. And it's changing as the process of, if you've traveled, if you go away somewhere and you come back, sometimes you shoot your own home a little bit differently. But I think also the process of going and fleshing out and building your own photography hobby or habit or work in the place you live, like if you go through the seasonal change of that and you come back to where you started, it's a product of everything you've seen before then too. So you're picking up and you're doing things a little bit different. Um, a lot of people talk about the photographer saying, like the journalist saying, "Oh, F8 and be there." I think people hear that saying, and I think they hear the, oh, F8 part a lot more than they hear the and be there part. But really the trick to doing this is being in the right spot. So when Linda invited me to come have a presentation, I was trying to think about what to do. And I hang out online in a bunch of different places. Like I don't post very much, but I sure read a heck of a lot. And I've been thinking through and like finding the same like recurring trends. And certainly over the last 5 years, I see people online talk about, I feel like I'm shooting the same stuff over and over again. People who they want to go do it, but they don't know what to walk out the door and go do. Or they're the last point I hear this a lot. They're like, "Oh, I was really big into it a couple of years ago and I set it down and never picked it back up, but maybe now is the time to get back into it." Um, so like these are common problems that I'm reading online. And that first bullet point, I'm shooting the same thing over and over again. Like for me, I'm like, good. So like I want to introduce you to some of the benefits of doing that. The second point, I want to go out. I have no idea what I'm going to go shoot. I've literally never thought that. So maybe this method or maybe this thought process is a solution behind that. And burnout, like I mean, I've been shooting every day for 3.5 years. Like literally, I'll find time every single day. Like sometimes it's big time, sometimes it's a little time. But I like 3.5 years, I've not missed a day. Sickness, work craziness, travel, injury, all that the same. So I think if I was going to hit burnout, I would have already, and I've somewhat pushed through it. So I think this is, I wouldn't call it sustainable, but I've certainly I think I've got tools that help keep things fresh and help keep things new. So really I want to I'm not going to attack the first point about I'm shooting the same stuff over and over again. I want to inform what a lot of that comes down to right now. You're looking at a photo of the Crescent Hotel in Dallas. It's in the area of Uptown, which is just north of downtown, and we've got downtown in the background. This is a drone photo, and it's kind of a hotspot area more or less for people who want to do this, but it's becoming less and less popular as you're doing it. So if we're talking about I keep shooting the same stuff over and over again, like obviously if you look at the photos, the conditions are different. The skill as a photographer is different. Your editing is different. Your profiling is different. But really, what I'm looking at that's becoming a point of fascination with me is if you start in the top left, that 2017 photo, if you see that where that wedge is coming to a point, the property just on the left of that, empty lot. The property just on the right of that is this low house. And the more you keep going down the images to the right, and then jump over and go to the bottom row and go to the right, like you'll see, okay, that empty lot in 2021 they started building this apartment. By October of 2022, it's gone, and the place on the right of that they demolished that. Then it was a big hole, and now it's a mid-rise coming in. And so, like slowly but surely, going back to hotspots and taking photos just year after year, it becomes a development history of places that are changing. They're growing. They're adding more. They're adding new. And really, when you look at this and when you think about the complexity of what they're building, and certainly those last two images on the right, like this is a mid-rise that's now changing how you have to take that photo. You have to be a little bit closer, which means it changes your attitude toward the foreground. You've got to shoot a little wider, you got to shoot a little taller because it starts blocking things out. So really, I wouldn't have thought too much about it in 2017 when I took that photo. I wouldn't think I'd be looking at that photo and my struggle to edit it with a really crappy like first generation drone. Uh, and by the way, just for full disclosure here, like I haven't retouched any of these. Like whatever I edited the time I shot it, I haven't gone back and fixed it. Although if anything is older than about 6 months for me, I kind of cringe and want to fix some stuff. And like I'm resisting the urge to do it just because I don't have time. Um, but really the funny thing is like you see, I mean, the city's growing up, the city's changing, but also like the composition nuance in this and like finding the right height as a drone operator and finding the right distance from the peak and making sure you get it symmetrical. Like you can see the development, you can see the steps on that. So that's one spot where like I called it an urban history attitude to taking the same photos over and over again, more or less. But you can also get completely different changes in atmosphere. Like this is a postcard spot in Dallas. It's a bridge that's crossing over I-30 about a mile and a half west of downtown that you get this beautiful curving traffic. You get these when it's dark enough, you get these car trails. You can draw them out as long as you want, and there's literally almost always traffic behind it. But if you go to the same spot, like if you do the math, like I mean, this is maybe a fifth of the times I've gone out there, and it's just like you look at all the variability. Like you get the big massive storm in the top left, like that crazy little thunder cell. I have no idea what was going on with that. I have no idea how it was made. You get more like street style. Okay, the sun is right in the middle of the frame. You're targeting the shadows. You're trying to arrange the cars. Car trails got lightning. You've got icicles hanging off of like the handrails behind that bridge is what that bottom left is. And then the bottom center photo happened during COVID lockdown. I was excused from that from work because we had field work going on, and so I had the letter from the president of my company saying, get out of jail free if anybody bickers with you about it. And so really what I did is like I did my job and then I spent a bunch of time driving around to all these like vantage points in the city that are normally just like chock-a-block full of cars. And I took that photo in the bottom right thinking I'm never going to see this stretch of I-30 abandoned again. And then the photo on the bottom right with that sunrise coming up, that was about 6 weeks ago. And it was just a random Sunday at like 6:15 in the morning. And there was like maybe 5 seconds where nobody was on that stretch of the road. So like I was kicking myself for preaching so much about 2020, like I'll never see this again. And then here on a random Sunday in the middle of nowhere, never saw it again. But I mean, each of these photos have their own life and they have their own like qualities to them and they have their own charm and their own attitude behind it. Viewed individually, like there's artistic merit behind doing it. I love having each of these photos, but really when you look at it like a group, you're like, okay, you've made something, you've made uh, a much more multi-dimensional presentation of what the spot looks like. Same deal here. This is where the Trinity River crosses on the west side of Dallas. These are again some of the postcard spots you'd see in Dallas. People go back here, like you can see people shooting this spot literally every day. The three photos on the left happen when we're in flood conditions and the water's up, so the Trinity's outside the banks of its river, and it's between like these levees that we've got that protect the rest of Dallas from the storms. And that's we get that maybe once a year or so, but it's crazy to me. Like every time the water is up, it looks a little bit different. You get a different sunrise, you get a different sunset, you get a different stillness of the water, you get a different like fervor in the water. And the two photos on the right are maybe a third of a mile south of there, just on one of the car bridges. Like you can walk on the sidewalk from there. And I mean, I've got a ton of photos from here too, but it's like it's crazy how like the upper right one, this spot can look like the Pacific Northwest. It can look like a purple lightning storm when we're under hail. Um, if you keep going back, like you'd be surprised how much you can make photos of the same place, although the cameras probably hasn't moved by more than 5 feet, look completely different just by going back. So I call this variability of atmosphere. Um, and so that was my instant rebuttal to people like talking about people questioning the value of going back to places. And this is that we're not going to get into this. This is just a preview. This is people saying I go out and I don't know what to shoot. Like this is me with all the different really attitudes in the seasons of all the different places that or all the different events that I'm tracking and things that I'm paying attention to and making sure I'm prepared for. Uh, and this is just a seasonal flux in Dallas. Like we do get snow and ice sometimes, not as much as you northern folks, not as much as you northeastern folks. I'm forever jealous. And when you see the snow photos I'm talking about later, you're going to be embarrassed for me that I'm so happy that we got that much of a dusting. There's also like I've put in the moon on here because like I shoot a lot of full moon stuff that's not necessarily the subject um of this presentation. But so for me, like I spent 20 minutes making my calendar for what 2026 looks like on the stuff that's already like slam dunk, I have to do this. And without even lifting a finger, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty busy. Like that's a lot of photos to go take. And there's other phenomena like we have a northeast to southwest city grid in our downtown central business district where we don't get people like Chicago and New York get Manhattan henge and Chicago henge when on the spring and fall equinoxes when the sun and moon rise at 270 and 90 degrees or whatever. Like we get something similar. I wouldn't call it, people call it Dallas henge. That makes me cringe a little bit. I wouldn't call it that. But it's just like we do get sunrise through and sunsets through our city grid, which is interesting. And I spared you the talking about those because I realized I was in the preparation time, I was spending way too much time about that. And it's just kind of like a fascination, but I'm not going to put you through that. And just we have other stuff like we've got the State Fair Texas, which some people love, some people hate. It's in Dallas and it becomes a photo obsession because it's chock-a-block Texas culture and it really takes over for 3.5 weeks in our city. In the bottom right, you see our tiny little pitiful fall in Texas. We do get color change if we have a situation where we don't get a storm that rips through and blows all the leaves off early, we will actually get fall colors. I love doing it when we do it. We've had some really good years, and some years are cut short. But it's funny. Our fall season is so late, but it crams right up against Christmas. And so, like, if you're trying to shoot all you can during fall, you're really pinching into your Christmas and your holidays. So anyway, like this is the people who are like, oh, I don't have anything to shoot. It's like, okay, put it on a calendar, start putting X's down, and then start thinking through things, and you might be surprised. So other than that, other than the scheduled stuff that you can put on a calendar and count on, there's certain cityscape conditions that make me do this in the middle of the night. Like the from Nosferatu too, like if there's low hanging fog in the middle of downtown, if I wake up at 5 in the morning and check my phone, you see those conditions going on, like, oh my gosh, like I catapult out of bed, just like stiff as a board, like Nosferatu, and I'm in my car in 10 minutes and I'm somewhere interesting to go shoot 17 minutes after that. And so those arrow points are a lot of the atmospheric conditions that we can get in Dallas, and I think a lot of other cities get. I don't know explicitly for other people around here, but so these are some of the big meteorological events that you can't really plan for on a calendar, but you can plan for like mentally in your mind. And so I love them because they're beautiful in their own regard. But really, when I was thinking about this presentation and when I was putting this together, I realized that part of the reason that I love each of these specific different elements is that it solves some compositional woes you may otherwise have about photos. So really, if you think about it in terms of like these conditions unlocking something else, it's not just like go somewhere and take the prettiest photo you can. It's like, how can you capitalize on this with something that may also be cool that you've thought about before? Um, so I'm going to get started with my favorite atmospheric condition in Dallas. That's the first one on the list. It's cloud inversions or low hanging fog. This is what it looks like. We get this fog coming in and sweeping in low. We get it maybe once or twice a year. It's absolutely gorgeous. It takes about the first 200 to 300 feet above ground level, and they're puffy clouds or they're long and flat clouds. They're slow moving clouds. They're big. They're silky clouds. They're slow moving, fast moving, all the stuff. I love it to death. And when you shoot it because I started shooting it because it's beautiful, and then I really started thinking about what should I be doing with these photos when it happens? How do I prioritize what spots to go to and really what I want to take? And so ultimately, like this comes down to when I'm composing a photo, I go through kind of like a process in my mind, and I didn't make this up. I stole this from Sam Abel, who's a very famous National Geographic photographer. I heard him give a talk at B&H. Geez, it must have been a decade ago, and like some of those sayings are lodged in my brain. And this is how he composes a photo, and I stole this from him, and I use it for myself. He says he composes in layers from back to front. And so you think about a photo's background, like for me in a cityscape environment, that would be like, what's the cloud cover? What kind of light are you getting back there? Do you have sunset colors? What kind of clouds do you have? The midground is like, it's the essence of where you are. It's the city. So for me in these photos, it would be like the skyline in the midground. It would be the arrangement of the buildings there. And then, foreground is obviously important. It helps direct the rest of your scene. It fleshes out the rest of your photo. And the other thing I added in here is like, I usually call it like a compositional flourish. And that's just something special you do to kind of give yourself a little twist on this. Like if I was looking at these four photos, like my compositional flourish on like the upper left is like, okay, the cables in that cable stay arch bridge are pointing to the city. Obviously the upper right, like we've got this sliver of light that's carving through the tops of those clouds. I didn't plan on that, but when I saw it happening, I made a beeline to get there. Bottom left, I didn't think that birds would ever fly above the clouds, but when I saw that, when I snapped that photo, and I was so thrilled about it. And bottom right, you think about that, the alignment of that other cable stay arch bridge just around the city. But anyway, so why I picked these specific photos and why I picked these specific views to make this part of the slide is if I took these photos without that cloud inversion happening, 80% of that photo is gross, gross, gross. Like it's boring. It's grass, it's patchy dirt, it's brown, it's trashy. There's not a lot of interest, there's not a lot of foreground, there's not a lot of compositional interest in any of that. But when you put this cloud inversion here, like the second paragraph there, I've scratched through foreground, like it erases all of the ugly or problematic or chaotic elements of those foreground elements. It completely erases it, and you're left with something else instead. And because of the rareness of the situation, I'm downgrading the importance of having like a meticulously composed background. Like in this situation, like, okay, I've got cloud cover. Okay, I've got a naked sky. Okay, there's nothing interesting there. Forget it. The photo is remarkable in its own right, just by where you are in the rareness of this happening. So anyway, I first realized that this was happening when I saw somebody else take these photos. I was like, oh, how do I do that? How do I go start thinking about that? What tools can I give myself to possibly do this? And short of going out in the middle of the night and looking up and seeing if there's fog, you don't know how tall it is, you don't know anything about it. I've devised some tools, um, or I've found some situations where there's information available online or in other places that can help you predict this. So a lot of the time, uh, it comes down to the time of year. Like that's just atmospherically when these sort of things happen. So in Dallas, like it's Christmas through Valentine's Day is typically the season for when the atmospheric conditions are right. If you're not in Dallas, like I'm sure your own conditions can vary. Like it may be year round for you if you're Pacific Northwest, or it may be closer to the spring or the late fall for you, depending on its time and temperature and dew point and all that other stuff. So just knowing when there's a potential for it, it keys me in the middle of the night when I wake up. It's like, okay, I'm gonna check items 2 and 3 on this list. Number one, I pretty much religiously use a weather planning app called Clear Outside. It's for Android. I think they have it for iPhone too. That's the photo that's on the left side of this. This is just a screenshot of what the app readout looks like, and it takes a little bit to get used to. But really, what I'm looking for here is it's a time in the year when fog is certainly capable, and so like down here, can you see the mouse? Like if I'm moving this around, or does that not come through?
I can see it.
Can or cannot?
I can. It's little, but I can see it.
Okay. Okay. So like I'm just gonna just make big garish movements then.
That'd
Like
be good.
in this log where in this line where it says fog, like that's I don't know how they come up with it. It's usually pretty dang accurate and it doesn't really tell you how thick it's gonna be. So whether it's thin enough to get through or if it may just be a 1,000 foot stack of fog, but it at least tells you something is going on and that you've got the potential for it. If I see that in the clear outside preview when I'm going to bed and setting my alarms, I make sure to set the early one. And then I check some of my other sources. Um, we're so lucky in Dallas. Like one of our big landmark features is Reunion Tower. If you've seen in the photos I've shared so far, it's the big ball with the lights on it. That's 474 feet off the ground, up to 524 is its maximum height. Um, Beautiful people as they are, they stuck a webcam up there that you can access online. And so that gives you a view at 474 feet of exactly what's happening atmospherically. So that's the center view for this. I didn't have a lot of screenshots of this, so I had to go back to hallowed antiquity. Like I had a screenshot from 2019 of what it looks like. But if I see this, like that's my cue to dump whatever I'm doing and get out there and get downtown and try to make something out of it. Um, that's not necessarily like the most attractive one. It's just like since I've been putting this presentation together, we haven't had this happen, so I really haven't had the time to instrument and equip a full screenshot of what this looks like when it's blowing and going. Uh, for other cities that are in Texas that don't have the luxury of having a webcam on top of one of your tallest buildings, if you didn't know, the intelligent transit system for TxDOT, each of these districts has automated lights that take photos every 15 seconds. And so you can, I'll, if I want to look in different directions, like I took a screenshot of, I put the website down there and for people in Texas, and I took a screenshot of what that looks like. And you can check these high mast lights, and some of them are only 50 feet, some of them are 125 feet in the air, but they're pointed in all directions. They're covering so many different parts of the city. So you can really figure out what's going on. So these are some of the tools I use to affirm whether that's fully happening or not. So, um, to summarize, like I have a little bit of a warning preview using weather prediction tools that, hey, this may happen tomorrow. And then I have ways of truthing whether that's happening or not by uh, turning on the computer or using my phone and seeing what conditions are like through whatever tools I can scrounge up. Um, Kind of the distant cousin to this, sometimes you don't have the full fog set and sometimes it's just like it's you get a little bit of mist or fog or like billowing smoke that's like steam that's coming off of the river. Um, I think that's beautiful too. Like these are some of the other photos I've made from this where uh, I wouldn't necessarily take the photo on the left if that wasn't happening. Like the sunrise isn't good enough, the light isn't good enough, the midground and the back and the foreground aren't necessarily interesting enough. But having this wafting mist going through it, like certainly made it a photo worth getting up and leaving home and going and taking. Um, so like that's it's kind of what it looks like and it's always a pleasant surprise when it happens because it like I said in the copy up there, it adds a little bit of mystery to otherwise what may be mundane. And the photo on the right, that this is it looks like the summer. I swear this is a winter photo. This is taken in the middle of December. It was like For me, it was cold. It was below 30 degrees Fahrenheit, so I had to wear a jacket, and I was annoyed by it. But really, the funny thing is, like, it looks like a summer photo, and I went out there to take the alignment of the sun coming up between, as I just mentioned, Reunion Tower on the left and the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge, that cable stay bridge from a couple other photos ago on the right. There's like one little corner of the window where you shoot it with a 500 millimeter lens, and the sun comes up, and it looks beautiful. And then when I was out there, what we're shooting over, like those trees, like that's where the Trinity River is kind of snaking through that levee wetland that I was mentioning before. And so as the sun started to come up, the steam started to really populate through there, and it's creating steam, which is its own interest. And then at the very bottom, I don't know if it's high enough resolution to see it, but you're getting like light beams also spreading through that through the top of those trees. So for me, like I was out there happy to take the photo of just like yellow monotone sun going through Reunion Tower on the bridge. And I got this extra little element that I totally wasn't expecting. And for me, like that absolutely makes a photo. Um, I love this one. I don't talk about it much. I don't share it much, but it's certainly one of those magical surprises where you go out for something else, um, and you hope for magic and you get magic plus plus. Um, I've got some prediction methods for typically what I find when I'm looking for it. I think this may be more onto a temperate zone climate, so it may not work in people who have way different thermal conditions we do. What I found is if you had a warm spell for a couple of days and the water in the river or the water in like ponds is really warm, and you get a cold front blowing through, and you get cold air right there, right when the sun comes up, it'll start vaporizing and materializing. So like it'll start ponding this vapor on the surface of lakes, ponds, swimming pools, and it'll start wafting off of rivers with the energy in there. So typically that's what I look for. It's like if we have a heat spell in December and then we're returning to getting cold, or if we have a sudden oncoming cold front and it's otherwise been warm, that's a sign to say, okay, when I go out in the morning, I'm not going to go look on this side. I'm going to look on the river side. I'm going to try to make something with that. And so those are typically my warning habits behind that. Something else that I didn't exactly put a bullet point for new compositions here are ways that weather can completely affect your photos. Um, we if we get about 5 days of rain, we like I was mentioning before, the Trinity River that's on the west side of downtown, like we've got a levee system on both sides that the river will escape its banks and it'll create a big wide river that looks beautiful once it happens. The water is normally chaotic, so when you get it still, it's its own little magnificent image making device. If you look at the Calma photos on the right, that's what it normally looks like when the water isn't there. And it's just like, okay, it's kind of an interesting, like two-dimensional photo. You've got, interesting arrangement of the buildings in the downtown business group. You've got the lights, you've got the illumination, okay, sunset, whatever. Like I took the photo to take the photo, but I didn't do anything with it and didn't think anything much of it. But when you compare that to what happens below, when you do get like very still reflections where you do get crystal clear water, it becomes its own completely different device. The photo in the lower right is a little bit south of there. The photo in the bottom left, that's actually where, not that same day or the same time, but that's the bridge in the composition where I met Steve. So shout out, like if you remember, that's where we linked up. And the photo that's in the upper center, like those are our two Calatrava, like big architectural, paid a ton of money for it. Silly cable stay bridges. Um, and only when the water is up and only in this one location and only in this one special configuration when the water is still enough does it make like this little reflective eyeball. I think I've made this photo, like I've been trying to shoot this photo, every time it floods, and I think I've only done it 2 or 3 different times, and this was the most recent time I did it. So this is a photo that does not exist unless you get floods and you get water and something like that. Um, so ultimately, um, getting back to how you think and plan through a composition here, like you thinking through your layers, like your background layer, yeah, it's going to be important. You need to do something with it. Your midground layer, equally important. You still need to have intelligent composition of all your different layers, arrange your buildings, micro composition, all that stuff. But really, the double plus sign is that having this water here completely transforms the foreground. And like otherwise, if these were just dry photos, like they would be rejects, or they'd be like, oh, that's nice to have. I'll keep it on a hard drive and do nothing with it. But really having nice crystal clear reflections turns it into something more than that. Now is about the time where I'm going to get dragged by the people in the Northeast. This is the last time we got snow. I think last year we got like half an inch. It was a tiny little dusting. But the point I want to make is that these are all really ugly photos that no way in the world would I have taken them if everything was dry and everything was static. The photo on the left, again, like I mentioned this before, this is really similar to one of those photos with the inversions where it's like if you just look at the ground out there right now, it's bare scalped ground. The city's just gone through and carved these drainage channels pointing to the river that's kind of like in the lower third of that. And so it's just at this point it's bare ground, and they've just built this pump station, which is where the other snow is accumulating. Um, and so it's like it's an ugly shot. I would never take this shot in normal conditions, especially with the trees being naked, completely uninteresting. But with the way it snowed, like I thought it was interesting that the snow didn't stick to the grass, but it did stick to the bare ground, and it started developing this stuff a little bit. So like it's kind of an image of what Dallas is like when it's frigid and we're not fully snowy. Um, I think the interesting thing about this again is you think about atmospheric conditions like changing what you think is important, like the snow and the loss of density and visibility, or the loss of visibility from the density of the snow, really kind of destroys clarity of the background. And some people may be annoyed by that. Some people may try to lean into Lightroom dehaze on that. And my pitch on that is like when it's leaning hazy or when it's going one direction, like lean into it. Don't try to correct it. Like lean into it, make it more hazy, make it more foggy, do something like that. Like go with where the image is trying to take you. Don't just try to correct on that. Um, the image in the center, if like they're building these like strip townhouses, and they're kind of ugly in their own regard. When it's not covered by snow, it's covered by all this like disjunctive pavement. It was like, okay, we got concrete over here, we got asphalt over here, we got driveways over here. It's really ugly and patchwork looking. But when it's covered by a layer of snow, it hides all that stuff. And really what it reveals is like the curving of those roof lines around the left side of the image that are not quite mirroring, but they're rhyming with the curving of I-30 on the right side of the image, and Fort Worth Avenue on the far left side of the image. So it's like it's putting these visual curves that are leading and steering the eye to the city center off there in the distance. And again, under the haze and under the lack of contrast from snow still being in the air. So that was a photo where I've flown over it before. Like that's a drone photo too. I've flown over it before, and because in my mind I was like, okay, I saw the rooftops, I saw all that other stuff, and then you try to take the photo, and you're like, ah, no, it's too ugly. I'll just land and punt it. But in my mind, I like tuck that away, saying, okay, well, there's something there. Um, and so really, what I love about the snow in that second one, it's on the second bullet point, like it's presenting the world as a more unified environment than it is, because it's curing all of the visual disagreements between the pavements and the sidewalks and the ugly grass and the brown stuff and the foreboding design of the townhouses themselves. And the photo on the right is that's our old red courthouse. It's they're turning it's not been a courthouse, and they're turning it back into a courthouse. Anyway, it's like it's this beautiful like Soviet architecture kind of building with this beautiful orange and red brick. I wanted the roof, like the striped roof, to be completely covered with white, because I wanted the contrast in orange on white, with the orange obviously like hanging around those parapet turrets. On the rings there, I wanted orange rings with those things sticking out. Didn't quite get it. Like I'll get that in the future, but I took the photo anyway because I wasn't sure the next time I was going to see something like this, just because it's so rare that we get snow and accumulation. Anyway, that's more of a novelty photo than a hey, breathtaking art photo. Like I wouldn't call it that at all. It's just, hey, I was there. That marked the time, and I thought it was interesting. So anyway, like that's kind of a run through of what I would consider like special environmental circumstances, and really like the overall takeaways I'd want to reflect with talking about this. And hopefully I've touched on these enough, but like to really hammer the point home, like I think that when you get something special like this, or when you get a complete change in your environment, like it essentially changes one or multiple ones of the layers. It can breathe life into photo locations you may have otherwise skipped past. Like I was talking about that one with the snow in the middle. Like I looked at it, so that there's no way in the world, but I tucked it away. So really, like I have this recurring thought process in my head of like, hey, this would be a great photo spot if not for, whatever's annoying you about it. Um, and for a while, I was keeping like a mental list of that, but it turned into an actual like physical list as I go through and try to write down this stuff. Because, like I said, like a lot of this comes down to exploring and walking around, and you're trying stuff, and you want to find something new, you want to find something different. And certainly, as the city changes, um, you're opened up to new potential viewpoints, and you've got some that are ruling out too. Um, so ultimately, like again, there's a chance that like the special weather could take away the headache that you've got um, about some of your qualms with that before. So like I said, I keep a list about this stuff. I don't know if anybody else is willing to go to that level, but I do it just because for me, when you get certain events happening, I don't want to have to think through, okay, where should I go? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Like, I want to do all the thinking I possibly can before I have to start making critical decisions where maybe minutes and hours are important before these conditions go away. So really, I want to have the pre-thinking done. So all I'm doing is opening up my notes app on my phone and saying, okay, snow condition, I want to hit this shot and this shot and this shot and this shot. Um, so really, I'm outsourcing my future thinking to my present self, and that's coming from the sheer optimism of trying to turn a photo that I don't think is going to work into something that I think is has the potential to be amazing if only X, Y, and Z weren't the problem. Um, and a lot of these other photos came from the compositional idea of wouldn't it be cool if I had a photo that looked like this, fill in the blank. And then you go through the process of like figuring out what it takes. And sometimes that's snow, sometimes that's clouds, sometimes that's deep, heavy fog, like all the way top to bottom. Like uh, I've got ideas, I've got images in my mind that I would want to see. Um, and so I go through the process of thinking through what would it take to get that. And then once it happens, you go check. It's like, hey, is that there? Did it work? Did it not? And so you refine that. And so ultimately, like, not that this is going to be, uh, not that this is going to be a presentation about the joy and the vanity of keeping all these different lists, but keep that as an undercurrent. Maybe that's the engineering side coming up. So back on, I don't want to zoom all the way back through the list, but one of the other things that uh, is kind of like a visual phenomena that happens every now and then. I call it a cloud gap. And that's what happens when you've got like low hanging clouds over, or like you've got some really heavy clouds over the entire city. But right there at the horizon, right where the sun is setting, you've got this tiny little opening where the sun is going to set and it's going to shine light through that. And it's going to underlight those clouds. Um, it's not necessarily rare. I think it happens a lot more than people it's not, you wouldn't call it like a rare atmospheric event at all. It just happens to be the organization of where a cloud happens to be. But what makes it cool is like it's absolutely spellbinding in what it does to those clouds. Like if you're looking at these photos, like the three on the left, like it shines, it puts beautiful light into a place where it's underlighting these clouds that have all these vivid textures that you have no idea that are there before. Like we've got these hangy down bits. It looks like a cat's underbelly in some places where you've got like the primordial pouch and the fur hanging down. It's all these crazy textures which you can't see unless it's getting underlit. And like the photo that's kind of like center right, it's like it's this cool little velvet thing. You get these crazy color gradients because what's happening is like there's only one source of light and it's coming from like one location. Like in a normal sunset, yeah, the light is coming from the same sun, but it's bouncing through all the different atmospheres and reflecting and refracting, and it's getting put in all sorts of different directions to get around there. But when you have this cloud gap, there's only one location that that light is coming from. So you get like this beam effect going right through that gap. So you get really, really interesting lighting if you're looking in the same direction of it, or as all of these photos are mentioning right now, like if you're looking straight into it, that's where the most pure and the most crazy colors are going to come from. And the photo on the right was what I thought was going to be an absolute wrecker of a cloud gap. I was sitting there dodging traffic at 55 miles an hour, 5 feet to the left and 5 feet to the right of me. You shouldn't. This is one of those places where you shouldn't be. It's between barricades on this highway where one of our arch bridges is. And ultimately, I'm showing that photo to say like we had the cloud gap and it just didn't light up the sky like that. Like sometimes you think it's going to happen, and you're out there and you're ready for it, and it's a dud. Like the bomb doesn't go off. You don't get the crazy colors, but you still go out there and do it anyway because the potential. So this is one of the situations where luckily enough the world gives you a lot of really good teases about this is going to happen. Um, Again, back to my weather app, Clear Outside. Really, what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at it does such a good job of the blue rows right here are illustrating your cloud coverage, and it's not just saying okay, you're going to be cloudy. It's telling you are these low clouds, are these medium clouds, are these high clouds, um, and so typically what I'm looking for with a cloud gap is you look for 0% low clouds here in this column, and then you look for like a big blanket, like a big stiff blanket of tons of cloud coverage in the medium altitude clouds, and like whatever the highs are, it does that doesn't really matter here. But really those medium clouds are what creates that really incredible texture below that. And it also it can't be the low clouds because it doesn't give you enough clearance between the bottom of the cloud and the horizon for the light to really get in and get anywhere. Even if you do get a tiny little gap, like that light just gets stifled before it makes it all the way across the ground surface to wherever you're shooting from. So this is a big teaser. I took this screenshot of clear outside. I think it was last month on the 26th. So it happens all the time. And again, like this is me. Thank you, Reunion Tower, for having the webcam up there. This is me co-opting and screenshotting these images because it shows you what the preview looks like before the actual event happens. This is about an hour before sunset. The screenshot of Reunion Tower that's on the left, it looks completely overcast, looks completely like sunset's going to be a total wash, except you get that tiny little like molten lava band right there of that yellow. Like that's the first sign that something is out there. And so like for me, like I took the screenshot right there, put my shoes on and ran and grabbed my gear and got in my car and started heading downtown trying to get something about it. And then the screenshot that's in the middle is showing you a little bit of the look backward, like more or less facing in the direction of where the sun is coming from to show you that like how that light looks on the faces of the buildings that are directly in view. Like, and the interesting thing here for me is the contrast between everything that's not getting hit directly with that face of light. It looks exactly like it does the photo on the left where it's like completely overcast. But the only thing you're getting is you're getting that really big punch of like yellow and pink color coming through. So you don't explicitly have to be shooting like straight back into the cloud gap to get something remarkable about it. You can get some really interesting color patterns here just by like intelligent arranging, knowing that the faces of the buildings that are immediately facing that way are going to look completely different to the uh to the parts that are illuminated and the parts that are in shadows. Um, so that's just like one special subcase of sunsets that really no rhyme or reason between when it's going to happen. It's just like where the cloud happens to be on that particular day and if it's the right conditions. But if it's football season and it's like the 6:30 kickoff and I'm really into my college that's playing a game against their rival and I see this happening, I'm going to turn off the TV and go shoot this. I'm going to do that and I'll come back to football later. Like that's how much I prioritize it just because the likelihood for them to be special is incredible, and I would pick that. Okay, so I'm going to change gears from sunset and atmospheric stuff and get started talking about storm chasing a little bit, which I laugh about this. Like Linda, I think you've had Mike Mazul on to give talks about storm chasing, and I know you have some real people who know what they're talking about here. I love them. I respect the hell out of them. Their work is phenomenal, and it's not for me. Because I found that in my storm chasing environment, I can stay perfectly still, and in Texas, the storms will come to me. So really what it becomes a matter of is like, how do you read the radar to try to get the best conditions you possibly can from this? We haven't had a lot of storms since I knew I was organizing this, so I don't have a ton of screenshots of radar to talk you through my thinking, but I've got a couple that are illustrating how I'm thinking about these things. And really the trick for me is uh, I don't want to get wet and I don't want to get my gear wet. So I'm trying to pick areas where it's like you can get some really beautiful lightning, you can get some really beautiful cloud formations and conditions without getting wet. It does happen. Be prepared for it. But really, I would, if at all possible, I would like to stay out of the rain and keep my camera gear dry as best as I can, and even keep it spare it from having to go under lens wraps and rain covers and all that stuff because that's just it's a tail whip. Anyway, the blue arrows I put in each of these screenshots of the radar are informing the direction that I'm trying to point my camera back toward the city uh to focus on the storm activity that's happening behind. So on this photo on the left here, this line of storms was moving pretty much due east to west. And so like what I wanted to do is I wanted to concentrate on this little thunderhead that's right north of the city. And I really wanted to prioritize on having a wider view on this big cluster here, because as this continues to roll, you'll get 5 or 10 or 20 minutes of some lightning producing weather. So by judging the direction of where these were coming from, I knew that like a south view looking north would concentrate on this close little guy, and it would also have some lightning potential here where you're still keeping in the dry too, because you're out of the green here a little bit. So really what I did is like I drove to the south part of Dallas and just started looking for compositions that were facing pretty much strictly due north. Um, the radar alignment in the center. I wish I knew how to do screen recordings on my phone. This would probably be a lot more informative than what it is right now. But I hope you can bear with me as I talk through what's happening. Like these are just like popcorn storms that we're developing, like in this little puff pastry of a storm pattern that was moving pretty much north. So again, we were completely dry out of the weather, and I was trying to target lightning strikes in some of these outer suburbs. And when they're this far away from downtown, essentially what you're doing is like you just shoot, you go further back from the city and you shoot with a longer lens to try to make sure the lightning hits the top of your frame or somewhat thereabout, to try to size it right. So it's more of a proportioning thing than anything else. But when I'm seeing stuff like this, you shoot toward the lightning and you hope that the light works and you hope that you get good coverage from this. And the photo on the right, like sometimes you're just doomed. This was a big wallop of a storm that came up out of nowhere, and I raced downtown. Like I was surprised by how much this one blew up. But really, what I want to point out here is and maybe this is Texas specific. So like if you live in a different regionality, like the what I'm about to say may not be directly relevant to how your storms work. But what I've typically found is like you get the most lightning and you get the most like hard rain that could precipitate in interesting cloud formations anywhere you can get kind of like this bending environment in these clouds. I'm not a meteorologist and I don't know anything about how or why, but I've just looked at this enough. And so when I see a bend like this, I would try to say, okay, how can I compose around this bend? How can I put a vantage together that could potentially create something good? So I'm looking at the squall line, and for me, I thought, okay, I'm going to shoot to the northeast because I was thinking we'd have this balloon here that was moving this way. I got this one wrong. I should have gone to the southeast because like they got a really interesting like one of those Midwest and like West Texas like characteristic uh one of those anvil hammer cloud formations right here, and I couldn't tell that that was happening because you're looking at it, you're looking at the side of it rather than looking at the front of it. So other people got that. I was really jealous that I missed out on it, but I misread that one. um and the other thing worth mentioning is uh when you're in an environment, I guess like most of these and like maybe the one on the left is a good talking point, is if you're looking at a big line of storms and you see stuff that's happening like south or north, like in Texas, this little thunderhead in Waxahachie is like stealing, since the moisture comes from the Gulf to the southeast, this is like stealing the moisture that's keeping this from really developing. So this one fizzled out. I didn't actually get much from it because this red cell started dying out because this guy was stealing the moisture from the Gulf and it just wasn't making it far enough north to really fuel this on. Um, so sometimes I'll see something like this and I'll see like a line way south of town and be like, okay, it's not worth going out shooting because I just don't think we're going to get interesting. And I think like the heat of the heat island in Dallas is going to kill this cell as soon as it gets there. So sometimes I'll put my feet up and be a little bit lazy. But for the most part, like if you do see an arrangement of clouds that's coming, like I would want to shoot it as far south as possible, in an orientation that works for you. Okay, so real life examples from, I think this happened maybe like 10 or 12 days ago. The So I knew I was putting this presentation together. I was like, aha, this is going to be a good opportunity to talk through my methods here. The photo on the left was about 30 minutes before the storm hit. It looked like we were getting this line that was moving kind of northeast, and so it was just pushing up in that direction. And I thought, like I just talked about, I thought, okay, I'm going to get this southernmost part of the cell, where we're getting a little bit of a bulge right here in the Euless area. I was like, okay, I think that's going to be it. I'm going to aim for that, crossing back in front of like the northwest suburbs of Dallas. So I positioned myself again southeast of downtown, shooting over the town, hoping to get something magical in this in these upper suburbs, either lightning or you get cool cloud formations. And 25 minutes later, what happened is like this thing kicked out some other unholy amount of rain that came out of nowhere, and you get soaked and you get doused. But right before you got soaked and doused, like obviously you see it on the objective of my lens right here. You see the droplets that have gotten formed, but we had some really sick lighting come through. These are single frames here where you get multiple bolts coming through, get beautiful illumination. The way our lightning works here, like you get this purple hue cast in some of the clouds. I don't know where it comes from, but that and the really rich blues of this happening at blue hour, it really created an amazing vantage point. The foreground really didn't do much for me. These were originally going to be frames for a time lapse rather than for still photo. So I was trying to get movement of, this is I-30 again going south to downtown. We've got a connector ramp here, another connector ramp here. So I was going for this whole like cacophony of motion, thinking that we get like this churning thunder cell up here that was going to pass by on the backside of downtown. So really, I wanted orchestral motion here, and I wanted similar levels of like movement and rotation up here. I thought it was going to, with the way I know what this turn looks like, and I was thinking that this was going to look pretty comparable to it, where you get compatibility between your background in the clouds and the foreground here, and what the movement was going to be. But I just pulled these frames because they were beautiful in their own regard, and the time lapse just didn't work. Um, so that was a loser in what I was objectively trying to go out for, but a winner in that I got two photos that I'm pretty happy with that are just going to live on a hard drive forever and I'm not going to do anything with. Um, so anyway, like a lot of people think about the storms coming in. Everything I've talked about so far has been how to prepare for the storms coming in, because really that's when you have a ton of time and a ton of attention, and you can do some thinking about where do I want to position myself. And for me, like I sit and just sweat that radar, looking for when it updates to try to think, okay, where's going to be the best spot to go. And I've given you kind of like my thought process for how I'm targeting this stuff, and where these lightning photos come from. But really something that I don't think a lot of people do is, so I got absolutely socked with rain right here. Uh, oh, by the way, like if you're not reading the text, like this is just like, it's not a legal disclaimer, like it's a serious suggestion because I was thinking about how cold and wet I was and how much I didn't like having to towel off my gear here. Park as close as you can if you can't be right next to your car. If you're shooting these kinds of storms, really what I'd recommend is like if you have a parking garage that's got a good vantage point, that is a great spot to go because you'll be protected above. You can park right there. You're shooting off the back of your tailgate. Everything is much more amenable. But in I just, we don't have a parking garage in this part of town, and I wanted this one thing and didn't get it. But park as close as you can. And for me, like as soon as I got the second bolt of lightning, I just picked up all my gear and ran. I said, okay, that's enough. I know the time lapse isn't going to work. And I prioritized gear and human health for that because I don't want the unlikely odd of getting struck by lightning. But anyway, I'm telling you that to tell you this. I spent a lot of time talking about how to plan for these storms coming in, but what a lot of people don't think about is let the storm pass over you and shoot the backside of it too, because like you will get a lot of lightning back there. You will get a lot of like really interesting cloud movement and cloud formations, and you can even get um, cloud formation is similar to like the anvil of a thunderhead that's on its way in. Like you can get the same kind of like dome rotation and like dust curtain down there and big like anvil overlapping cloud on the backside too. So really what I do is like I'll go to my car, I'll towel my stuff off, and I'll start migrating to the other side of where storms are going. And this specific set of three photos was a good example of this. Um, I'm sorry, I didn't think about taking photo or taking screenshots of what the radar looked like, but I knew that we had a big storm cell coming through on the north side of town on our northern suburbs. It wasn't going to hit downtown. So I set up on photo one uh because I thought again I'm thinking about the lower shelf of these clouds being the top of my frame. So I'm thinking about okay, what focal length would work with that? What composition facing this direction would work really well with the focal length of I think this is like 35 millimeters or so. And so like I went through my mental catalog of like, okay, what northwest facing compositions work with a 35 millimeter focal length. And I went to there. And when I was sitting out there, I was watching the continued motion of these clouds like swinging around and going further to the north and further to the east. And after I knew I had a winner here, I packed my stuff up and like I ran over to this photo location number two, which is like this little it's a little commuter bridge that's crossing the Dart Rail and the Union Pacific Railroads, leading to like leading lines, of course, to Reunion Tower. And the storm is going a little bit further away, so like the cloud ceiling is getting lower, and I'm shooting this a little bit wider too, so that wasn't quite great in terms of proportioning your lightning bolts to the rest of the image. But it's another image of lightning that I got just by picking up and displacing a little bit as the storm continued to the north. So when I'm out there shooting, I'm sitting there with my remote shutter in one hand, just mashing the button as often as I want to. I'm watching the radar in the other and looking for development. And really, I'm looking for some sort of information about where to go next. And as the storm started passing over, it started making more of an easterly turn and going over some of the northeast Dallas suburbs. So like I did think about taking the screenshot here. So this is like that big cell, like it motored through around our northern suburbs and then started just cruising east here. But for me, I'm thinking, okay, we're back more to the longer focal lengths here to try to capitalize on this. And so I was thinking, okay, northeasterly view with the city between you and where this lightning is going to, or where the big thunder cell is going to be. And this is one of the same compositions I shared before on the bridge right by the levees. Um, a ton of people shoot the spot, and like I just happened to go there for hoping I could catch the lightning here, and we got some really complex blasts. Didn't really get much in the cloud formation because like the longer this the longer this green section is, the more like that's masking the real texture and the structure of what these clouds are going to be. So this is just like it's just a big haze filter right here, but you will get lightning like peeking through it. And really that's what I was going for here. So that was the that was mission accomplished. And for me, like a set of this, like I got 3 photos in about an hour, 20 minutes, which for me, sometimes like I'll go a week without finding a photo worth sharing or posting or even editing or looking at. And so when you get 3 in a day, it's, you know, you're over the moon. And if you get 3 in the time it takes you to cook dinner, eat it, and wash the dishes, um, absolute victory. So anyway, like the story is like if you get wet and if you have success with the storm coming in, don't forget about the backside of the storm because like it can be really impressive in its own regard. How are we doing on time? Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna motor through some of this. I'm sorry, Linda.
No, that's okay. I'm not too concerned. And if you feel like you want to split this up to another presentation, we can do that too. So
I,
I'll,
I think the rest of this is going to be pretty quick.
okay.
I just won't go into as much detail about it, and I think it's going to more or less speak for itself. So like
Okay.
these are all like the special conditions, and so like you know going back to the calendar is like okay, well what do you do in these months where nothing else is happening? And this is just an area where I chase sunsets as much as I possibly can, and you just look for something magical happening. Um, this next slide is the money table. This is the compilation of 10 years of shooting, thinking about what direction do you face when you're trying to shoot and get the best sunset colors that you possibly can. Typically what I'm doing is I'm looking for any clouds in the sky. If it's a featureless day, you've got no clouds out there, like I'll go try to do something with the light, do something with directionality. I'm not thinking about sunset. I'm not thinking about cloud colors. I'm not thinking about any of that. Like in my mind, like shooting a completely bare sky at sunset is it's a little bit too mundane for me, and I don't really enjoy doing that. But when you do get some clouds in the sky, like if you have one cloud, for me, like obviously, like I capitalize on that one cloud and try to, you know, whatever direction it's facing, um, shoot it and do the best you can with it. But really, what happens is like you'll have a lot of opportunities to, like you'll have a partly cloudy sky, and you'll have a bunch of clouds over here and a bunch of clouds over here and a bunch of clouds over here. And what you come down to is like for me, I've distilled like what direction do you face to try to get the best out of what your conditions are giving you. Um, I think the thing I first learned to do when I first got started was like, oh, well, I just want the coolest, I want the most screaming, bright, most saturated colors I can possibly get. I'm going to point my camera and like if the clouds are right on top of the sun, I'm going to shoot exactly that way because that's the best and brightest and the coolest light. And yes, that is a major upside. Even with the improvements in dynamic range in our camera sensors right now, it's still very difficult to like properly get exposure on what you're shooting in your midground and your buildings. So you're kind of sometimes you're prioritizing the color in the sky for everything else in the photo that, you know, silhouetting is a good look. That's a good way to do it. Um, but like there's a lot of other drawbacks about it. Um, I mean, you can read these if you want to. I think the timing on shooting straight toward the sun, whether it's coming up or going down, it's sometimes too big of a burden. If you're shooting sunrise, oh my God, like it's a complete guess, like in Dallas anyway. Like you have no idea of knowing what it's going to look like until the sun starts coming up, and then you start getting information about where the clouds are going to be. So I don't shoot sunrise very often just because it's frustrating as heck to not be able to like I like shooting sunset because I can watch the clouds for an hour um before you got to go out and make a decision. So I know where they're going, I know where they're heading, I know where the high altitude clouds, medium clouds, how are they moving. Like I like having information to make a decision about where I think they're going to be when the sun goes down. But when you shoot in the morning, like it's a total crapshoot, and that fries me. I will still do it, but it's begrudgingly. So anyway, so shooting straight into the sun, you get some. I guess I'll go ahead to the next slide. Like if you shoot into straight into the sun, like this is where the best color is going to be. The one on the left, I think I shared that photo before with the that's the edge field overpass I was talking about that had all the variety of conditions. That's a sunrise photo. Absolute beautiful blanket of clouds. I like shooting into the sun because you get this beautiful gradient a lot of times where you get the color as it's developing the clouds. Like this one is going from like a light orange to like a pink up here. This one's going from like a muted orange to like reds and purples up here. This is going yellow through orange. And really what that is like the color gradient that you're seeing is a function of how much past the sun going down are you going to get. Like this is early sunset, this is medium sunset, this is kind of like mid to late sunset. The longer you go, like sometimes you'll get like really deep and rich purples. So I do that like in certain conditions where, obviously if that's all you're going to get, if that's the only place where the clouds are, I'll do it. Uh, but what I found is like when you're editing these photos and like this one is showing it off a little bit, like to get some sort of detail in the lights in the city here, to make it exposed to the point where it looks realistic to the eye. Like for me, like it makes the feeling of these buildings look kind of like plasticky. And I haven't figured out, I'm sure there's editing tricks and techniques to try to reduce like the plastic effect of how these buildings are coming off, but that's just like the visual feeling I get from looking at that. So that's one of the reasons why I try not to do it. Ultimately I shot this photo the way I did because I knew we were getting these crazy lines here, and it worked well with like this is a our light rail, our commuter light rail, one of our sidings yards. So we've got all these parallel railroad tracks going in the same direction of these parallel clouds. And really that's what I was going for. And I knew I'd get the yellows here. Like I picked yellows and oranges as being the gradient because we were getting the yellow in the dart trains with the oranges and the reflected light on this. So that's why I picked that specific time of this sunset to pick it, because like you get the mirroring in the in both the line work and also the colors. Um, and one of the other ways you get away with shooting straight into the sunset is, God bless Dallas. I love it to death because so many of our buildings have LED illumination on it, which really cures the plastic effect and really spares you from a lot of the worries about underexposing some of your foreground and midground elements, because you do get some of that artificial light back. This was the State Fair in 2021. This is like a 500 millimeter lens shot, maybe 400, maybe 450. I can't remember. But like if you're sitting out there, like this is an otherwise featureless sky. Like this was 2 fingers. Like if you hold your arm out, or hold your fingers out at an arm's length, that was like 2 fingers of thickness of clouds on the horizon. And I just like put that in front of like these our big Texas Star, which is our big Ferris wheel, and like this I don't remember what this tower is called, but this thing goes up and down. It takes people and it goes up and down, and it's part of the fair anyway. So I took this photo with the tiny amount of clouds we had, and literally the clouds ended like right up here at the top of the frame, and then it was just clear featureless sky after that. So this was me trying to make pearls out of getting nothing, and this ended up being a photo I really really liked. I don't think this photo exists anymore because just like these people put these lights up, they've put a lot more. So like I think this photo is now too cumbersome to take. Also, worth mentioning, I spent about 8 hours clone stamping power lines just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth out of this image. And I don't want to do that again. So I think that for me, I think this photo location is kaput. I was happy to have it in 2021. I think I shot it last year too. But just with people putting more and more stuff up, it kind of went away. But anyway, so like these are the upsides of shooting into the sun, like when the sun is setting. But like you'll see like also down here, like it was kind of like a low contrast, kind of like a haze over here that really helped soften some of the plastic effect here, like shooting into these buildings here. Um, and just for full disclosure, like a lot of the contrast in here between, like you see a little bit of these drop shadows that are illustrating a little bit more of the textures of these buildings and like the shape of the buildings. I did that in post. Like I used a curves adjustment layer and like painted that stuff in where I knew that those shadows would be. So like it's artificially done, but it references what the true life is going to be for how what those buildings look like. And really, so like I'm trying to find ways of curing my dissatisfaction with shooting into the with shooting into the sun. So that's kind of a preview of what that looks like. The other thing that a lot of people do is like you shoot directly opposite the sun, where it's like if you're sitting there on a tripod, like the sun is shining into the back of your head and you're looking in the same direction that the light is going. I see a lot of people do that. You do it because you get a more even illumination of everything that you're looking at that the camera's pointing toward, because that the light and the color wash that's happening behind you is obviously hit in the same direction that it's painting your back. It's also painting the front of what you're taking photos of. You pay for it a little bit though. You're losing a lot of the texture in the clouds, and you're losing a lot of like the really detailed stuff, and you're certainly losing like a lot of the peak colors. I think it also much like if you take like a direct flash photo of the wrong thing, like you lose a lot of the texture and you lose a lot of the depth perception just because it's the light is coming from the same orientation that your eyes are looking. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a minute. And it's again for like for Dallas, like it's a little bit of annoyance because a lot of times like if you're shooting directly in alignment with the sun, you lose your color before the city lights come on, be they the building lights or they or the actual like office lights, like the yellow and amber lights that are in the buildings. So the timing may not work out exactly for you. This is a peek of what these look like. Again, as I was mentioning before, like we had a great cloud formation here. It looked beautiful before the sun went down, and I waited till sunset to shoot it. Um, and ultimately, like this was the best of the color that we got, and it's really kind of featureless and gross. Uh, I mean, I'm still happy I took the photo, but like I wouldn't call that a screamer or anything. What I am happy with is like you get the building reflection and that's bouncing off from the light behind you. And this is very similar to one of the photos that I took under the cloud inversion where I talked about like having that ugly foreground below you. Like this is what I was talking about masking. Like it's just grass. It's just like spoils. It's like it's scrape marks and Jeep trails and like it's transmission line. So I shared this also to help inform like what I was talking about with that. So when the arches were just peeking out over the clouds, like and it was bearing those transmission lines, I was rubbing my hands together because I swear if I win the Powerball, I'm gonna bury these transmission lines and just be done with it. Personal grievance. Uh, the one on the right is more or less the same thing. Like this isn't exactly shooting in the same direction as where the sun is setting, but it's kind of giving you the same atmosphere about that. And this kind of shows you like the flatness of the image. You don't really get a lot of depth. You don't really get a lot of texture in the lighting between what's in your foreground. Like it's kind of an overcast look, even though it is still tinted by the light and the sun. So, I mean, I still took this photo and edited it and did the best I could to make it presentable, but still it's like, okay, I'm glad I took it, not going to do anything with it, whatever. But it's illustrating the point anyway. And the same complaints about the clouds. Like we had a beautiful arrangement of clouds. These are all high altitude clouds that if they were in a different corner of the sky, these would have lit up oranges and pinks is what these kinds of clouds would do. Like these are your high altitude ones and those you get some really good colors there. Um so anyway, like these are examples of what happens when you're shooting opposite the sun. So you're shooting like straight in the same direction that the light is fading. Oh, this last one just makes me laugh so much. Like the photo on the left, like that is the most photoshopped fake looking sky I have ever seen in my life. But that is a single raw DNG photo. Like that's a still it's completely legitimate. I mean I've you tweak it in the development module, but like it is the most fake looking true photo I have ever taken in my life. This happened exactly like I was talking about. Like the sun is going behind me, it's pointing in the same direction. So it's not quite exactly like I'm at this pin right here and I'm facing into where like the buildings are like this yellow circle here. So it's not quite exactly on the same axis, but it's the same kind of like flattening and lack of depth effect that I was talking about before that really precipitates into this looking completely not real. And no matter what I do to the image, I can't make this one look real. So although we had an absolute screamer of beautiful overhead, like medium altitude clouds with like these little, beautiful pink sections here, um, it just doesn't work. And I don't know if like I've these dash lines are like the orientation of the city grid going down here. So like that's the face and the orthogonal face of these buildings. So like, is there something about that? Is it because the light is parallel to that they're so flat? I've stared at this photo for a year and I can't digest why the raw file looked like this and why I can't make it work. But it's just like this is in my impractical curiosities of cityscape photography that I still haven't figured out, but it is a real risk of shooting in this orientation. So if you do that, know that you may get something like this. Um, anyway, like I like showing this photo because I I mean, say what you want about people who do sky replacements. I won't do it, but it's really funny to have a photo that looks like the worst sky replacement, the most fake one you'd ever see in your life, and you know it's real because you're standing out there. And like I took video of it because it looks so fake, even to the human eye. Hilarious. Anyway, moving on. Last one. This is kind of if I had my pick, I would try to shoot sunset like this. I don't want to shoot straight into the sun. I don't want to shoot like straight with it. I want to be somewhere in the middle there. So like 90-degree angle with respect to the sun, or sometimes like I'll go to like 60 degrees on either side. Like for me, that's the real middle ground between getting great colors, you get great texture in the clouds, you get an interesting gradient where, as I was showing you staring straight into the sun before, the gradient was from bottom to top. If you shoot like this, your gradients and your color change is going to be from side to side. I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. You still do get a little bit of the downsides of both of these two. Um, you still can get if you're exposing for your clouds to make those colors really rich, that means your foreground and your midgrounds may still be really dark, and so you got to work on your exposure there or exposure blending or do something with it. That's not editing that I'm really good at, so like these next few images are going to be kind of struggle bus. But I hope this illustrates my point of why I like shooting this orientation so much. So these are what like a 90-degree orientation to the sunset looks like. On the left, I decided to drop a silhouette here because I thought the reflections were so good. But yeah, this is the beautiful side lighting. And as I was talking about like the side gradients, like the same yellow to orange that we had in one of those photos shooting straight in is like we now get it like lower right to top or lower left to top right. So it's kind of like a sideways gradient here, which is its own kind of beautiful, certainly with the orientation of where these clouds are. This is another one. These are again mid-range clouds that are just hanging over the city. The sun is setting like back over here a little bit. So I'm kind of like in the 45 to 60 degree off axis view. Um, and you see what I'm talking about, like the lack of contrast and like it's hard to get good detail and definition here where you can really tell what's going on. Um, and you just kind of deal with it. Like this was where I was and this was the photo that I made. And I'm trying to illustrate the stronger and the weaker points here. I'm going to skip over this. This was going to be a breakdown of the same photos that I showed you before, like how shooting into and like really what I was trying to point out is like it's funny. Like I didn't do this intentionally, but it's like, okay, summer photo, winter photo, summer photo, winter photo, winter photo, summer photo, mid-range, summer photo. Like these correspond with like the peak summer photo, like the sun rises as far north as it can and sets as far north as it can. Winter, it rises far south, sets as far south. So shooting straight toward the sun, shooting 90-degree, like that's what you're doing. Like I figured this out just by accident. Like in terms of the orientation, sorry, I should have oriented you. Like the camera is in this little notch right here, looking back south. This little dash line here is the crescent of these buildings. I'm not going to go too much into it, but really I thought it was funny that it illustrated my point through 8 years of just like stumbling around with it without realizing what I was doing. Um, so yeah. Last thing I want to talk about, how am I doing on time? I will zip right through this, but like it's a shame to put this off to the end. I've talked about all the other seasons and the things I do, but what I really love shooting is fall. For us, our fall schedule is usually like November 27th through the 29th is the start and like it ends in like December 10th. And really what happens is like how good of a fall we have in Dallas is 100% a function of some people say, "Oh, you know, we had a really wet summer, it's going to be a good fall." Or they say, "Oh, we had a really dry summer, it's going to be a good fall." Or, you know, the opposite, like people have all their different theories. The only thing I found that dictates whether you're going to have a good fall or a bad fall in Texas is do you have a windstorm that comes through and rips the leaves off prematurely? If you don't, you're going to have a great fall. The leaves are going to stay on as long as they possibly can. If you have the wind that blows through, the leaves are going to be on the ground prematurely. So and this is me looking at it for 10 different years trying to find the rhyme or reason. Um, but our window of time is so short that literally I tell my boss not to expect me like I'm going to be late every single day because I'm going to shoot sunrise like I never do, because I really want to do it. And I've got 10 days to make 20 photos is what I'm trying to do. So point number one for me is like, because it is so short, every year I have a priority list on the photos that I want to make. And some years, like I'll shoot the same one as I shot before, or some years like I'll put this one down and go shoot this one instead. Like, but I make a list of the photos that I really want to make. And usually that's spurred on by wanting to keep things fresh, or there's some new feature behind it, or there's some change in the orientation, or there's something different, or you know, personal associations sometimes. So I make a list and I start shooting it as quickly as I can. And like a lot of times, like if I get done with it, I'll go back and try to do it again, looking again for peak color. So I'll shoot early in case the leaves blow off the second day of December. I've at least got something where they're first starting to change. So I shoot like an absolute demon as much as I possibly can. Um, People love to shoot fall, but since we don't have fall much here in Texas and it is so short, like I see a lot of people making some what I call fall pitfalls. Oh my gosh, why did I do that? Um, I see a lot of people, I see a lot of great photographers try to do this where it's like, okay, I'm going to shoot fall colors. I'm going to shoot it at the same time I'm shooting sunrise and sunset. Um, And my point is like you got to pick one. If you're shooting sunrise and sunset, that means all of these leaves are going to be in shade. They're not getting hit with direct light. Like you're losing the saturation, you're losing the color, and it's all going to blend brown if you try to do that. So if you're shooting sunset, your fall colors are going to go brown. You want to shoot, for me, like I love shooting it with the sun. This is the one time of year where I shoot with the sun actually in the air. And you do that because like for me, like to really get the saturation of these fall leaves and the fall colors, you need it to be hit with actual direct light from the sun. Like that's what saturates the good reds and the crispy goldens and like the oranges. Like that light and that specific amount of color comes from direct illumination from the sun. And if you're trying to merge sunrise and sunset at the same time, you're just not getting a strong enough light to make that happening. Um, Point number three, this is what I'm going to talk about next. Is the directionality of lighting. Uh, this like I'm gonna use the same photo from last year to tell the rest of the story here. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to beat you down with all my fall photos. Beautiful spot. I love that. This is maybe my favorite area in Dallas to shoot the fall because we have so many trees overlaced into Dallas. You can shoot it with a telephoto lens and you can just make a lot out of it. I will always shoot this photo in the morning. Like this is such a morning photo to me. It's sunrise because you get the glancing blow from the yellow light here on the right, hitting it. You're getting cross lighting here, so the light is coming from the right side of the screen, and pretty much 90 degrees it's hitting this, and so you're getting the depth and you're getting the contrast between the front facing part of the light and like the shadows back here. But most people that I know in the city that shoot this, they try to shoot this at sunset, and what they're getting is what we just got done talking about, where the light is coming into the same direction of where you're looking, and so the light is illuminating this. And so they're getting like they're getting like flat, featureless context here, and they're not getting the trail off between light and darkness that really help illuminate the depth and like the 3D popping effect of when you get this color change going on here. So this is like a Dallas photo, but I think this is a universal lesson that if you're trying to shoot fall colors and you're having trouble really getting depth and definition and making something look dimensional, really consider the direction of light. I feel like shooting other cityscapes and shooting other types of photos, like with modern sensors, like our dynamic range and our editing is so good where you can make good on that. But this is one of these areas where you just have to go with conventional wisdom on this. Like you just got to go with the way things were always done, and digital cameras will do you right. But if you really want to get these colors good, um, it's worth it to get this lighting right. So every photo I've got that's like a fall photo, like I put a thumbtack in a map and like, okay, what am I kind of trying to do with it? I look at it and think, is this a morning photo or is this an afternoon photo? And so the ones that are over here, obviously you get the cross light here. Like these are sunset photos, these are sunrise photos. If you're up here, sunrise photos, sunset photos. So it's like you just based on like where these light directions are coming from, this really informs what time of day you take it. And like if you don't do this, like most of the time you'll be fine, but in the fall, like if you're really going for like color depth and color definition, um, you may not be happy with what you get. And so that's my theory and that's my understanding on why this is happening. And the other part for me is like I shoot this one in the morning because like I like that sun. I shoot this one direction like intentionally right where the sun is reflecting off of this building and right when it's just like hitting the tiny corner of that because that's where you get this lens flare. Um I do that quite intentionally, and that's the reason why I wait till the sun is this high in the sky because I just love that. Like this is my what I called before the compositional flourish, like putting that light reflection there and the lens flares. That's what this image is all about. So this is what I was talking about for 2 and 3, temptations of sunrise and sunset. If you're shooting fall colors, my pitch is like shoot these ones when the sun is higher in the sky than you would otherwise try to do. Like don't try to time this with sunset, and that's the reason why. And the directionality of light, like I talked about in old school, it's old school photography, it's old film photography lessons that really come to play here. And the fourth thing is this is like a personal quirk that I don't hear anybody talking about, but this is like I'm angry about this, or like I wish Adobe or the other raw developers would do something about this. It's the limitations of your editing software when you're trying to get your colors right. So what I'm talking about is um, if you're trying to if you're trying to properly saturate your oranges and your reds, you've got your white balance, you've got your development nodules to get module, excuse me, to get your exposure balanced and, do whatever you want to with your camera calibrations. But if you're messing with your HSL tabs and you slide those sliders over and you're trying to saturate your reds, it saturates your red highlights, it saturates your red shadows too, where I swear this is something that again, this is old school photography, and this is something I didn't really believe until I sat there and studied it and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. It's like if you look at, again, it's what I was talking about before with these colors needing like direct illumination from like hard light from the sun in order to really get that punch and to really get that color. I sat there with uh one of my nephews, like the big fire truck toy. We were in the backyard and it was laying there on the grass on its side. Uh and the sun was just in the position where it was lighting up half of that, and the other half laying in the grass was on shadow because it had hit the side of the building. And I sat there thinking about, at that point I was obsessing about film reproduction and CCD sensors and all that stuff, and I was trying to think about like memorizing what these colors looked like. And what I realized was like the red of this fire truck in the areas where it's directly illuminated by the light is exactly as saturated as you would think, but I'm sitting there like tunnel vision looking at the same fire truck, same paint, same red that's in the shadows like 12 inches away, just right on the other side of that shade line. It's what I would consider like an extremely desaturated red. And so like that happened years ago. And the more I thought about it, the more it really clicked with me in terms of like making my images look right. And the problem is like when you just move over that saturation slider for reds or for oranges or whatever, it's saturating that whole color channel. And my pitch is like you need to if you want to properly and like realistically saturate your photos, you need to think about what color spectrum or for each of these color channels, what part of it needs to be muted, that's your shadows, like a little bit more on the desaturated side, and what part are you really trying to punch up. And I love fall photos because like that is a perfect boil down of this philosophy like into one specific package. And so that's the setup, and really what I would suggest for you, and this is what I've been doing for the last few years. um, I edit my raw files on the left to be, I edit these to make, I want the colors to be what I want the desaturated colors to be. So I'm not looking specifically at the highlights here. I'm looking at the colors of the shadows and the reds and the oranges and the greens. I desaturate this to the point where I think that is realistic and that's what my eye is seeing. So like these golds down here, like you can't see any of that gold because it's all gone. You've desaturated it, but you're just trying to do that for the shadows. And then that's how I develop my raw file, and then I export it to Photoshop, and that's where I go back and manually, like using local brushes, or I use the overlay tool with specific colors, and like I'll paint that saturation back in on the areas that are getting directly illuminated. So for me, like if you look at these photos back to back or like side to side, it may not trick your eye with how much difference it is. But if you're sitting there with your layers and toggling them on and off and on and off, like it makes an obscene difference. And like if you see these printed, I've printed them, and like the if you crank the saturation up to the point where your highlights are the same color here, and you're looking at these shadows, like these reds are nuclear, these greens are nuclear, like these yellows down here, like this looks like an environmental brownfield site. To get the colors right on your highlights, you've sacrificed the rest of your shadow, which quite frankly is the majority of your image. So really what I would guide you to do is or at least play with it, try it once and see if you like it, is like edit your raws on the desaturated side to make these colors like that are in the shadows match what you want them to be. Export it as a different object, and then like put that saturation back in, like using localized brushes. Um, so anyway, like I just think that it's a shame that the saturation sliders in Lightroom um just saturate the whole color channel regardless of where it lands on the histogram. And if you know if they're listening to me and if they're tuned into happiness hour, I would hope they would have like a an HSL tab where it's like highlight saturation, shadow saturation, because at that point I would just split them to desaturate one, saturate the other, and then you could do this in one development tool rather than having to go multiple software suites. um that's my soapbox uh fall colors and on doing that. And I'm seeing now, like I don't think I created a good conclusion slide. Like I think we made it through the rest of the seasons there. um
That was a lot of information. I am
Sorry.
no, don't apologize at all. I actually am so pleased that I've recorded it because I can go back and hit replay for some of the pieces. Okay, so there are a couple of questions that snuck in. So let me throw these at you just because they were fun questions.
Great.
Um, First of all, Donna's question was, are you accessing public spaces for the cityscape scenes in Dallas?
100 pretty much everything I've shared is 100% public. There are some spots that like that'll like I wouldn't put the photos out here right now. Like I'll post them on social media or whatever, but like I wouldn't put them in a
Mhm.
presentation uh that's open to the public and gonna be on YouTube. Like these are all locations where you can either walk
Mhm.
and get to yourself today, or if you know if you've got a drone, you can fly them and wide open to go do.
Okay. And then Kathy's question was, and I already know the answer. Has your passion for photography made you change where you live in the city to be able to get to the areas quick?
Can I share my screen again? Oh,
Yes, of
okay. I don't
course.
want to spoil it too much. I'm
No, it's fine.
shopping. It has done that. This goes back to like one of those initial slides where it's like I'm lurching out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning when
Yes,
something is happening.
yes.
I When I moved, the last time I moved was 7 years ago, and I picked a place that had immediate connectivity to every single major uh, thoroughfare that
Thoroughfare.
can get me anywhere in the city
Hmm.
in a short period of time. I deliberately chose where I lived with that in mind because uh, and then I swear the goof of all time. I've been with my company now about 5 years, and a couple months after I got started, they're like, "Oh, we're going to move you up to Plano," which Linda, it's 2 blocks from where we got dinner the other night,
I know, right?
and it's just like they moved us to North Oklahoma, and people keep saying, "Oh, Brad, I can't believe you drive all that distance. Like you come into the office 3 or 4 days a week, and you're driving all that distance. Move to Plano." I was like, "No, I'm not going to sacrifice what I do 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day, for what I do 3 or 4 times a week. Although it's my job, it's my profession." So yes, in answer to your question, like it's deliberately influenced where I live, like for connectivity. And for a future wink, like I'm shopping for a place right now that may or may not have been um seen in some of my photos that I'm sharing right now that will have an actual like city view out of my window out of my kitchen.
Wow. Okay.
I have big dreams and I have big ideas for what to do with that. But yeah, yeah, very intuitive. It was a huge feature and a huge decision in where I lived. And like you pay the price for it a little bit, but I do that with you pay for what you love, right?
That's right. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up because we went long tonight, but I'm not at all upset about that, Brad. I loved all the information. You delivered exactly what I was hoping you would do. And I want to thank you for sharing again and coming back I, I don't leave after I shut down the computer or recording because East Coast people stuck around for the whole thing.
Wow.
That says a whole lot about your presentation. Okay, so just for fun, what are you
Thank
gonna
you guys for doing that, by the way. Like I feel bad because like I lost the clock on my on my screen
don't feel
when I was
bad.
in presentation mode. So like I was checking my phone like every now and then. Like that's when I realized like I really got to motor on through. But thank you
Don't
guys
don't
for tolerating that.
don't feel bad. They can come in, they can watch the video. I just love it when they stay. So clearly they want to probably say something afterwards. Okay, so spoiler alert, what are you gonna shoot tomorrow?
Uh, geez, that's tomorrow's problem.
Okay.
Um, I don't actually. One of the things I thought about talking about um, was what a normal day looks like if I don't have something like straight on the calendar. And really, okay, this may not be the right group to do it, but it's kind of like when you play football. It's like you run the option. It's like you get the ball and then you look at one guy, and depending on what he does, you go one way, and depending on what the next guy does, you go the next way. It's like you make the decision just one at a time.
Right.
Like I've I swear, like if I put a GPS tracker on my vehicle, like it would look like the most schizophrenic driver in the world, but like I have a path that like I'll routinely drive that shows me what's going on, what's here, what's there. And like it changes due the year based on where I know that light is going and where I know the changing and the light is moving. If I had to guess, I think my photo for tomorrow is going to happen at like 5:12 this morning. The crescent moon is coming up. I
Yep.
didn't put that on my calendar, but like we've got a good crescent opportunity. It's like 60 something degrees east of north. I can't remember. Sorry, I've slept since then, and I think I've got a line on a good photo for that. So
All
if I had
right.
to guess, it would be that.
Okay.
But there's a long way to go between now and five
Well,
o'clock in the morning.
I look forward to seeing what you post. All right, Brad, thanks so much. All right, next week, bird photographer Ray Hennessy will be here with his presentation, Creative Bird Photography. Until next time, go out, create something beautiful, and I hope they will see you again soon.